Should the New Orleans Saints seize an opportunity to reunite NFL free agent offensive lineman Leo Collins with his former offensive coordinator, now head coach of the Saints, Kellen Moore? I don't know if it's a great idea, but I'm pretty sure it's not a bad idea. Let's break it down and figure it out. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. Now, this conversation comes about from an interview with Leo Collins had with Matt Moscona, who's a radio show host in the afternoons up in Baton Rouge. And in the course of the conversation, Leo Collins kind of talked about some, I think, very pertinent stuff about him being 100% healthy for the first time, but also dropped the nugget about he had been in contact with Kellen Moore and there may be some interest about the Saints bringing him in. Grain of salt, because that's the only place I've heard it, but it's been talked about. I'm not saying it didn't happen or it could not have happened, but kind of nothing from the Saints end. But may mean something, may mean nothing. May have just been casual conversations with Kellen Moore, and they may pique some interest. That's the stuff we don't know. But I think it's worth talking about, taking a look, because Leo Collins, very interesting set of circumstances surrounding him. And it started with his draft process. Now, I know who Leo Collins is as an LSU fan. He played there. He's a very good offensive lineman. But just in case somebody needed a refresher, because I didn't remember everything, I had to go look up because I remember there was some other stuff going on around him during his NFL career. And for those of y'all that don't know, this will be the first time you hear it. But unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look about how it worked out eventually, in the draft process when it started 2015, when he was entering the NFL draft, there was a incident, and I you can go look it up if you want more specifics. I don't know that much about it other than what's been kind of said, and I'm just gonna hover above that as far as I can. There's a very serious incident resulting in a violent crime that happened. He was interviewed by the police, who, when they requested the interview, as far as I know, there was not an arrest or anything. It was a requested interview where they said he was not a suspect, but apparently he had some information they wanted regarding this incident. It put kind of a dark cloud on him while this was going on during the pre-draft process, even though and nothing ever came about of it. He was never charged with anything. It seemed to just be that whatever happened, however it happened, he had some information they wanted to speak to him about. But it did kind of put the cloud over him, so to speak, and would potentially a first or early second round, second day pick, first or second round, kind of what some people were thinking. It went the other way for him so badly that during the process, he and his team put out there. Let's see if I think I have the direct. Um, no, they don't. They don't have the direct quote, but I remember reading what his team put out, the statement. But in effect, what they were telling the NFL was, you know, if he's not selected by the third round, he will be willing, or the third round or after, he would be willing to shit out the entire season and re-enter the draft in 2016, which is a bold statement to make. But this is where, interestingly enough, it may have worked out, because I think that statement was the final straw where teams might have been willing to take a chance on him in the later round. Like, nah, we're not going to bother with it. He became an undrafted free agent. Dallas jumped all over him and gave him a nice, healthy, big contract to come in for them. So basically, they kind of, and he kind of fell into a fortunate situation where they didn't even have to waste a draft pick on him. And he got very, very fair compensation by in the ability to pick the team he wanted to go play for, which in this case was Dallas. So he gets to Dallas. He played for Dallas from 2015 to 2021, first stint. And in that amount of time, he came in as the left guard, or as a backup guard, I should say, reserve guard, but worked his way into the left guard position. It was kind of rotational. at first. They were shuffling through a couple of different guys, but apparently he hit because he played 12 games at left guard and he ended up starting 11 of them. 2016, his second year going in, he was going to be the starting left guard, started 3 games, but then an injury derailed his season. And that's something that comes around and bites him pretty hard later on in his NFL career. And that was ended because he tore a ligament in his toe, and that just ended his season after 3 games. 2017, he comes in. They give him a shot at the starting right tackle job, and he wins it. Plays 16 starts and plays 16 games there. He held that job in 2017, 2018, 2019. He misses 1 game due to injury, but during that stretch, 3 straight years, 16, 16, and 15 in games played and games started. And he was a very good right tackle. I don't think he kind of would have been in anybody's category of all pro, but he was good. And he was well known around the league about being a good right tackle. You go back and look up at his PFF grades, they passed him, all during those years as a right tackle. So at minimum, solid work. At best, really good work on a really good offensive line. Then in 2020, in the preseason, he gets in a car accident, has a neck stinger, kind of was where his injuries issue started. He developed a groin problem and then eventually a hip injury. All that before the season started. Eventually, he gets IR'd. He misses the whole 2020 season. Comes back in 2021, plays in 12, starts 10, but the games he missed week 5 game suspension due to a substance abuse policy violation. So ultimately, that year he plays in 12 games, starts 10 of them. There was a couple of times where he was removed from games and the backup went in. So it's not a great year officially all the way around. But the funny thing is that was one of the highest PFF grades he ever had, which was 82 in during that. So kind of tumultuous for him, but still at times played well. So just really just unfortunate, with the suspension and everything involved in that. After 2021, he and Dallas kind of sounded like they wanted to part ways. He requested to seek a trade. They were okay with that. No trade happened. They ended up cutting him. Cincinnati signed him. He played a year in Cincinnati. Seems to have struggled somewhat in Cincinnati. Wasn't the same caliber of play that he had in those prime years in Dallas. The 3 year stretch, 4 year stretch he had in Dallas. But he did start and play in their first 15 games. In week 16, he tears his ACL and MCL. 2023, he tries to come back. He signs with Dallas, never plays a down for Dallas that year. 2024, Buffalo had him on a practice squad for a while. So basically, the last 2 years, Buffalo and Dallas, he was on the roster for a period of time, but was never on the active roster, certainly not on the 53-man or game day roster. So he effectively has not played a down of NFL football since that knee injury in Cincinnati in week 16. What he claims, I shouldn't say claims, what he is saying, because I don't want to act like I know for sure he's not being serious here, but what he's saying is, look, he's finally healthy for the first time in years. He has a history with Kellen Moore from his days back in Dallas. So you could see where that contact kind of it makes sense. It really does. And if it's on the level of where Kellen Moore might be interested in getting the Saints to bring him in for a look, or hey, how you doing? Are you available? We may need you. Something along those lines. I think it makes sense to ask the questions if you're the Saints. Because when you stop and think about what's going on with the Saints offense, and we'll talk about that in a second, I think if there's a piece somewhere under the right set of conditions that you can bring in, and especially the offensive line, that's going to make some type of considerable impact. I mean, it would make no sense to me to ignore it. So I think it's, like I said, I don't know if it'd be the greatest, smartest move just to sign him, but at the same time, I don't think you can go wrong. At least, hey, let's investigate this and see what turns out and what could possibly become of it. And I think it may be important for the Saints to, lack of a better phrase, kick the tires on La'el Collins, because when I'm sitting and looking at the Saints offense and just, the three basic categories that the offense can be broken down to: the offensive line, the skill players, and the quarterback position. And you were to say, okay, rank them with one being the most confident, three being the least confident. Um, what order would you put those in? Offensive line is one, skill position is two, quarterback is three, and I don't even have to think about it. But here's kind of the rub. I think when you break those three categories kind of down, the offensive line with McCoy at center, we're good, really really good. Let's just keep him healthy with a solid backup in Will Clapp, who's played a lot of snaps at guard, but a lot of snaps at center. And so it's not quite where we were the last couple of years, where we're getting a guard that occasionally played center trying to back up. He's done both, and he should be able to handle it. He's got a whole year under his belt as a starting NFL center in his career. So you're going, we're really good with the starter, and the worst case scenario that we don't want to talk about, we may be able to survive a short period with our backup. You look at the tackles, Banks and Fuaga. I think everybody feels, I know I do, feels pretty comfortable. We're at a good starting point right there. It, neither one should be a disaster, knock on wood. And it's really the at this point, when you're talking about how good the line can be, is going to be on them, how fast Banks gets ready and develops, and how much Fuaga makes that leap you kind of want to see from year one to year two. And then next year at this time, we'll be talking about Banks, hopefully the same thing. Now all of a sudden you've got two bookend tackles that are elevating their game, and they're going to elevate the offensive line with it. And I think this is where a lot of excitement comes in from Saints fans about the O line. I know it is for me. Really, right now, your biggest questions, unless you don't feel good about McCoy, Banks, or Fuaga, is really, how's Pinning's move to left guard going to work out? And when it comes to Ruiz, Ruiz played at one of his best seasons last year at right guard. But the question there is why? And it's a little scary question to ask. Was it because that wide zone scheme was a scheme fit for him? Maybe, possibly. Was it because John Benton, one of the best offensive line coaches in the NFL, worked with him all last year? That's probably has an awful lot to do with it. And it could just be a case, he was a center in college and we were moving him to guard. And I think the expectation was he would handle it seamlessly. He didn't. And then before John Benton come along, we didn't really have the process or the coaching or whatever it is in place to kind of help him along. So we're hoping to see some combination of this scheme, this coaching staff coaching him up, and his own. Hey, I'm a veteran now, and I can really get a grasp on stuff. I get all this now. It's a little slow my first couple of years of getting it, but now I got it. So if you get a combination of that, he's going to be more than solid and should be fine at right guard. Now you have the making of, hopefully, somewhere down the road and really soon. Somewhere down the road and really, really soon. I don't know if it'll be this year, but the foundation for next year, maybe, where you have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, or the possibility of having one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. And the reason why that's so important is when you get down to the skill positions on the Saints, I think right now we're top heavy. Our starters and the guys that we're counting on to play the most snaps, whether you're talking about Alvin Kamara, Olavi Shaheed at receiver, Jawan Johnson, hopefully Foster Moreau is going to be ready to go at the beginning of camp. He'll be there along with Jack Stoll. Some pretty good NFL level talent. Are there guys at those positions that are better? Arguably, in some cases, yes. Definitely in other cases, yes. But you have a solid core group. You start looking past those guys, it's question mark after question mark after question mark at running back, at receiver, and at tight end. So you look back at the offensive line and going, well, it's solid what we think we're putting out on the front five, but depth behind it. We've already talked about Clapp, got Redunds. Young kind of has really grown into at least a serviceable backup offensive lineman, both at guard and tackle. We brought him back. There's always hope Saldivari will get healthy and you finally figure out if you have anything with him, plus some of the younger guys they drafted. When you look at quarterback, and I'm jumping back there, the start and the depth to me doesn't matter because this is it's I don't think anybody can argue it's a hugest question mark. We have no idea how this is going to work out, and unfortunately, we don't have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. I don't think it's a possibility in the near future, but I don't think it's going to start out at camp in that category. And when you're looking at the skill positions, if you have to start relying on some of the depth unless they step up, because I feel like at all three of those positions, what you have at depth is a bunch of what I like to call Jimmy and Joes. A bunch of guys you know, and look, hey, they are what they are. They've got talent. You know you can probably use them somewhere. But when you're looking at the backup running backs right now, and then you look at Alvin, who's hanging on to his elite running back status, and at the very least should still be very, very good, especially in this offense. And then you look back at the rest of them and you're going, look, I'm going to need one or two of you guys to become dudes, graduate up a level. I need you to level up. Or in the case of somebody like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who once was at that level and was just had some issues the last couple of seasons, I need you back there. But at any rate, I need at least two of you to be dudes. Decide amongst yourself. I don't care who they are. You kind of look at the same thing at receiver, and you may need some of that young talent at tight end to do the same thing. You just don't know if you're going to get it. You get those things, it makes our quarterback issues a lot less scary because now offensive line and more than enough depth in ways that the offense coordinator and play calling can use all those pieces to kind of make the game easier for the quarterbacks as much as we possibly can, then you have a better chance of developing them. So, all in all, when I look at this state of the Saints offense, because I'm really want to be very careful how I walked, my thought process, how I presented it. So you don't want to be pessimistic here, but it's very easy, the drop of a hat, to become pessimistic when you're looking at any of those spots. And you want to kind of try to avoid that. And I think one of the things that if we can keep increasing the depth on that offensive line and bring in some more help that's going to sit, next to Redunds, Young, and Clapp, I think that's our three primary guys right now, unless one of them happens to go win a starting job, and then the loser of that battle may end up becoming one of the primary backups. If you could sprinkle in somebody who's familiar with Kellen Moore, he played for Kellen Moore for a couple of years in Dallas. He was good in his prime. He's had injury issues, and then he racked up some major problems with the hip in 2020, and then definitely damaging both knees and looked like a struggle to come back from that. This is what I would say. If you get him in some way, shape, or form where you would be more confident with him than, say, a Saldivari or a Josh Ball, or you still really start getting down that offensive line depth chart, yeah, okay, that might be. Is it worth it? And I'm thinking it probably is, but I'm wondering where the worth is under some very strict conditions that he comes in 100% healthy. I think that's the thing. It's any type of red flag pops up on the medicals. I think sorry to say, when that history develops and he's over 30 now, I mean, he's only played roughly 7 years in the league because of lost time because of injuries, but he came out in 2015 in the draft, so about a decade ago. Do you I can see his side of it going. I've had time last because I haven't played much football to get fully healthy. But he has to be fully healthy in my mind. Second thing is a fair and honest situation where I think the Saints have to go to him, and it's going to be veteran minimum, Bob, about 1.255 million, I think. Probably a 1 year deal. Yeah. One of those ultimate prove it year deals because I don't think you slap a big signing bonus on it. You probably put some escalators in that contract somewhere where, if he earns a starting job or, you know, plays so many snaps or whatever, more money will kick in. I think that's the best you can do with him. But if he would agree to it, okay, that's good. But I think the main thing is will he fit what we're going to try to do? Because I think what you're ultimately looking at if you sign him for a really basic prove it deal is you're one of the primary backups. You're one of the guys we're going to lean on if something happens. If we have to reshuffle the line, you have ability to play a cup, some guard, mostly a right tackle. You know, the ability to go, we have a primary backup that we can shuffle over somewhere else if we have to, kind of fit into that with Young and Redunds. Now you're kind of adding a third guy to that mix. Um, and he once played at a high level. If you realistically think if you can get him, I'm not saying back to that level, but anywhere near it, especially when you're looking at him going, you know, we may only need him for a couple snaps a game or maybe a game or two type. If he goes beyond that, then we're going to have to do something else type situation. That's fine too. Because I think anything you can do to strengthen that offensive line and make that as rock solid as you possibly can, that is the best chance you have on offense to have a position group that's can reach full potential of an NFL um, position group you need. So to wrap it up, I really think that bringing in La'el Collins, when you start looking at the bottom end of our 90 man, well, 91 man, because Charlie Smith has an exemption. So we have 91 players sitting in there right now that there's probably somebody you could go, yeah, we could move on to take the chance on La'el Collins. And it's probably somebody maybe in that offensive line somewhere. I don't think you really jeopardize a high potential young player that might roll in. You never know. But if there is, they would have probably had to have made that impression in OTAs, rookie minicamp in that area. So I can understand if they go, no, Collins may be a guy that we would bring in during the season if I don't want to say the I word, but I words start happening and all of a sudden we're more than just having to need depth or shuffle the line. We've got to go get some extra bodies. So I get that point of it too. That's what I'm saying. This may be an interest now or keep it in touch because there could be a need later. But either way, I think Collins is a guy you want to keep an eye on. And if you wanted to take that chance, it doesn't cost you a lot, and he's healthy to come in, so you can get a realistic look at him. Probably worth it. So, first time here, you like what you saw? Go ahead, please subscribe, hit the like, the share, all the 9 yards, all the stuff for the algorithm makes it happy. Um, totally lost my train of thought, but I'll try to power through it. But no, I really would be interested to see in the comments mentioned earlier. So pop down there for me if you wouldn't mind. Just you know who else? Because I think we need a little more. I think we need a little more at every position actually. But I think that's the closest where the position where we're the closest. So a little more might just be able to get to that point where you say we don't have to worry about it being an average, above or below average NFL line. We now pretty sure it's going to be above average. Hopefully, we can get it to be good, great, excellent. Something above that. Guy like Collins, I think may have the shot at just kind of pushing you over that first little hump to okay, we know we're going to be above average, and then we'll start figuring out how to keep getting it better and better. So that's what I got for you today. I am still working on the tight end video that I promised, but got a little sidetracked when this came up. Decided to let's just knock this video out real quick, and then we'll hopefully have that one ready to go next week. So till I see you then, I'm Tim. Peace out and who dat.